Olas Media. Olas Media presents Cannabis Enlightened. Now here's your host, Dr. Leroy Brady.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another stimulating, dynamic session of Cannabis Enlightened. I'm your host, Dr. Leroy, and I am especially happy and pleased to be with you today because the guests we have are guests that are very special and guests that I have had to really, find. I had to really reach high and low and stay on them. I met them at a conference here in San Diego, and we hit it off right away. And I was under the impression I could just pick up a phone and contact Jaime and Nicole, and they would, be there. But lo and behold, I had to really find them because they were moving every which way. I don't think they had the same issues that my parents used to have when I was growing up. They would move because we had to pay our bills. So I believe that Nicole and Jaime have been moving different places because of the topic that we're going to be discussing, that is cannabis. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask Jaime to come on and introduce himself and his lovely wife, who, by the way, I got to tell you, right now we only have audio, we don't have a visual, but Nicole's smile will knock down a brick wall. It's something else.
Thank you, Leroy. It's a pleasure being here and a pleasure being on your show and explaining our message. We really appreciate the opportunity. So our journey started in California. My name is Jaime Brambila. I am the co-founder of Grace Health and Wellness, and my wife Nicole is a co-founder of the company. We started the company in California in the pursuit of trying to bring relevant therapeutic information for people that were trying to find knowledge about cannabis, about how cannabis could address their chronic symptoms. And we jumped into this journey trying to figure out what to do for people and how to help them. And one of the catalysts for our stories is my wife, Nicole, who in 2018 in August was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. And that just made things real for us on why we were searching for relevant therapeutic information for patients seeking help with cannabis. This is Nicole. I'm going to let her present herself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. For us, this is a lifelong mission, but it's also a lifelong dream to be able to bring this to the forefront and be able to bring, cannabis to patients who are in need. And, our idea is to kind of change history and change all this up so that we stop people suffering.
I would be remiss if I didn't want you to let our listening audience know that, you're not sitting comfortably in your living room or in your den. You're taking care of business right now, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I'm actually, I'm in the process of getting CT scans done. It's the marker scans to see, whether or not there's metabolic activity, to see whether or not my body is, doing what it's supposed to be doing. So I'm in the hospital right now and waiting for those scans.
And I'll just put it into context, Leroy. So metastatic breast cancer is a chronic disease, and our established medical industry and medical community view this as a chronic disease that there is no cure for. So patients have to be in treatment for the rest of their lives and in constant screening to figure out what the cancer is doing. So Nicole gets regular screenings every 6 months now, and we'll probably continue to go through for the rest of her life.
Okay.
So that's why our story is unique, because we are trying to reverse that. We're trying to reverse the idea that chronic disease is here to stay. And we can use powerful plant medicines, adaptogenic compounds to really reverse that. And our
Right.
science is not ready to recognize that yet.
Right. So, Nicole, while you have to deal with the cancer for the rest of your life, which is a bad thing, you also have a good thing in
Yes,
for the rest of your life. That
absolutely.
person next to you, right?
Yes,
For the,
absolutely.
for the rest of your life.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay. And he's been a complete jewel, I would imagine, as you have been on this journey.
completely. And he saved my life. Jaime saved my life along with cannabis. And if it were not for that beautiful combination, I would not be here. So I am very, very grateful.
So I'm not going to ask you which one you want to put first, the cannabis or Jaime. I won't.
Good question. That's a great question.
And just for the record, Leroy, I don't think I'm anything special. I think that I understood modality, plant wisdom that, we've had a relationship with for thousands of years. And we have lost that knowledge. We're regaining it now. People that are progressive in healthcare are regaining that knowledge.
Mhm.
So I'm just
Okay.
facilitating
Right.
what was there all along.
Right. Nicole, you're drinking something. You're in the hospital
Yes.
receiving treatment, and you're drinking something,
Yes.
and it doesn't look like a cocktail. Can you talk about what is it you're drinking?
Yes. So I imagine it to be my favorite cocktail for the time being. It's actually a vanilla barium sulfate drink. It's for the CT scan, and basically what happens is there are 2 containers which I have to drink. It contains a certain amount of sugar, and then once it's digested and the CT scan is given, my body will light up depending on where like a metastases might be or where a tumor might be.
So
Any
this,
kind of-
okay. So when they do the scan, because
Mhm.
you've ingested this, they
Yes.
can see it will go to the areas of where there is cancer.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And just to also add to that, one of the things that we like to discuss also with our patients is that for me to do the CT scans, they're necessary for markers every 3 months. But we also make sure to tell patients to push their doctors to provide PET scans, the PET scan as opposed to a CT scan. And I'm just throwing it out there because it's one of the things that insurance companies will not cover. So somebody like myself, even though I have stage 4 cancer, they are still reticent about providing a PET scan for me. They don't want to because it's too much money. So anyway, again, to throw that into the mix, those are the things that, we want to discuss and we want to bring to the forefront. And that is really imperative for us to discuss with our patients so that they are not afraid to talk to their doctors. They're not afraid to ask questions, and they're not afraid to push for the necessary tests that they need.
It's really important to discuss the real world dynamics with healthcare because the balance is tipped, not in the patient's favor, but towards the establishment, because patients have to constantly struggle with battling their healthcare providers, their insurance providers to give them what they need. And most of the time you're battling for attention because, this is a system. They allot a certain amount of time per patient. And, human dynamics really take a backseat to that system.
Is that kind of what took you from California to the East Coast, which you're in Connecticut?
Yes.
Okay.
All
right.
We're in Connecticut now. I'm originally from New York, which is one of the reasons why we came back. Even though the diagnosis was in California, the ironic thing was the doctors, the oncologists were actually more open on the East Coast to the use of cannabis than they were in California, where I was in Orange County.
Wow.
And yeah, and
That's
we were-
interesting. I'm
we were-
surprised.
So were we, but once we started going through all of this, what you begin to realize is it's big business. And
Mhm.
the moment that anyone begins to disrupt the protocol of the big business, right, you're just going to get squashed. So if the doctor is following a particular protocol and now I'm throwing something into the mix, they don't like that at all.
So, Nicole, when you say big business, you're talking about the medical industry or cannabis? Which one is big business that they're not?
Oh, yes. Okay. So the pharmaceutical industry and just the
Okay.
medical industry, it's just, it has become so grossly salesy. That's the
Okay.
only way that I can explain it at this point. And you're no longer an individual. It's no longer individualized medicine. You're a number. We're being herded like cattle. And the bottom line is, if and just many conversations people have had like this. The more money you have, the better the healthcare. At this point in time, somebody who does not have availability, financial availability, and also just depending on the culture, just depending on your gender, you're screwed. That's the only way that I can explain, for lack of a better explanation.
Yeah.
We are no longer caring for humanity. We're caring for our business. That's what we're caring for.
It's a business, right?
Yeah.
And when you talk about something being a business, you're talking about profit and loss,
Yes.
which it shouldn't even be in the equation when you're talking about a human life.
Correct. Correct. And the reality is, at this point, we're numbers. So therefore, we're expendable. And since we're expendable, it's a complete game changer, because our worth and our value is completely diminished. And so it's like what you were saying, it's profit and loss. So if the profit isn't there, do they really care about what's happening with us? No.
I'm a bit surprised, perhaps more than a bit surprised, that New York is more open than California, when I believe New York has just adopted cannabis from a recreational standpoint just recently, I believe, and
Yeah.
California has been since 2016. But maybe I should take note of where you were living, Orange County. Maybe that.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting point. Yes. Yes.
A popular term nowadays in the cannabis industry is social equity. And California is one of the cradles where cannabis legalization started. But
Yes.
Businesses really took it over, and they really forgot why cannabis was being legalized, which is to create access for the people that really need this medicine. Once you have business dynamics again taking over something that is supposed to be for the benefit of people,
Right.
the benefit gets lost in that
Right.
profit and loss equation. So in California, when it was legalized and when the rules were being implemented, there wasn't really access for a lot of stakeholders to participate
Right.
in an industry that was just being open.
Well, can I ask you if your insurance? I'm sorry, Jaime, I didn't mean to interrupt you. We're talking about the subject of profit and loss in business, and that you moved from California to New York. Has this been covered from an insurance standpoint? So
No.
this is on your own dime.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that we have come to understand is, as I was saying, cannabis is wonderful. However, without the education, without the financial backing to be able to afford this kind of treatment with cannabis, a, an individual, the ability for them to get this medicine is slim to none, because of the cost, just because of where to get it, the viability, whether or not the product is actually a good product for the illness that they may be working with. And so
Right.
it's been quite a journey. It's been quite a journey, but
Right.
a journey that we're really happy about, because without this experience, we would never be able to have an opportunity to actually help other people and guide them, to let them know
Right.
that, it is available. It's just,
Right.
we have to learn how to navigate.
Right. And you bring forth a very good point, Nicole, that makes me think that, or feel, and I don't want to get too sappy here, but when you talked about a journey, it's a journey that is really hard for one person to take. The fact that the two of you are together is really precious. I mean, I hope that the listening audience takes that to bear, that, even if you don't have a husband or a wife to help you, you need some significant other to help
Yes.
you through this. Would you
Yeah.
say?
Yes, without a doubt.
Advocacy is very important, Leroy, because otherwise you just kind of get sucked through the system, and the system does whatever it wants with you. Advocacy is very important. When you mention about how difficult it has been for Nicole to be a catalyst in this journey, it's difficult to see the person that you love the most suffering next to you, and being able to do very little about it, because sometimes you just have to breathe through it and be there for the person,
Yeah.
and in the background do whatever you can to make sure that you, the person that you love, is taken care of.
Yeah, this is a moment where I wish we had video, because every time you said love, Nicole looked straight at you. Straight at you, buddy. So whatever your favorite dish is tonight, I'm thinking you're gonna, whether she's a cook or whether she's gonna take you out, you're gonna get it, buddy.
Really quickly, I just wanted to say it's
Sure.
such an important point, because going back to what you had said before about being, feeling alone, like you're not in this alone. So I believe that it's essential for people to look for their tribe while they're going through this, whether it be
Yeah.
one person, five
Right.
people, even animals, to have
Yeah.
something around you that's going to boost your morale.
Yeah, yeah. I love the way you put that, tribe. You look for your tribe. You got to have your people.
Yeah.
You got to have your family, and in some cultures, that's very, very important. Your family is it. And I think I remember a time in our American development when just about everybody lived in one house.
Yes.
I mean, it was grandparents, parents, cousins, nephews. And, I'm guilty of this too, that after a while, it's like, you need your own place. I need my own place, and we don't have that kind of support anymore.
No, it's gone.
Filial piety, the bringing together your community, bringing together your family,
Yeah.
and prioritizing the group that's uplifting you.
Yeah.
It's certainly something that we need more in this country,
Right.
which may address why we have such a lack of empathy now in this country.
It's true.
The values that our parents and the love that our family gives to
Provide,
us.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So I know that I saw Nicole take another swig of that drink, and
Yes.
the last time we talked about it, before we came on air, Jaime had some very choice words in terms of, Nicole, you're a real trooper. Every time I've seen you, take that, I could swear it's like orange juice or your favorite drink. But Jaime, what did you say? How did you characterize it?
That it tastes like crap.
Yeah.
Larry. It's a necessary evil, I guess.
It's chalk, basically. It's like sweetened chalk.
Sweet and chalk.
Yeah.
sweet chalk, and it's the means to figure out what
Yeah.
Nicole's physiology is
Right.
doing, what the
Right.
disease is doing to her body, and it's something that is hard to grapple with, because
Right.
when you're dealing with this level of chronic disease, the identity that we've formed, that we feel so proud of and all that stuff, gets stripped from us, because you're not a whole person anymore, or what we believe is a whole person anymore. And
Yeah.
so
What I wanted to do, well, this conversation is so very rich. The thing I was thinking about is that, Nicole, you said that from California to New York, to Connecticut, and you're from New York.
Yes.
So in addition to getting the medical help that is more towards what you believe you need, you also came back to the East Coast to be closer to your family.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So what kind of family do you have in New York, Connecticut area?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from Brooklyn, and my mom moved out to Connecticut a few years ago with my dad. And my sister is in the city, is in Manhattan. So,
Okay.
the first thing my mom said was, "Get your ass home. Like, what are you doing over there?" That was it. She was just like, "Come home," because she was petrified. It was a very difficult time because she had just lost her husband and her brother.
Oh my.
And so having to tell her this, it was like, it was worse than the actual diagnosis because
Right.
I was petrified telling
Yeah.
her. That was her exact words are just, "Get your ass home. What are you doing over there?
Yeah.
Come home. We have to get you to Sloan." And
Yeah.
so we went from there.
So I don't know which is helping you the most.
Yeah.
The medicine that the doctors are providing, the cannabis, or being around your tribe, being
Yes.
around the people that love you. I think maybe it all works together.
It absolutely does. And having the opportunity to be in this position, I consider myself very blessed. I'm very grateful. Not everybody has this available. And that's one of the reasons why we try to understand, patients on an individual level, because not everybody has this. And
Right.
they're learning this as they go. And especially when somebody is in a weakened state, like when they're caring for themselves, because, most of us don't know how to.
Right.
Most of us are petrified. And then most of us are at the mercy of the doctors who probably aren't, in most cases, giving us the best care possible.
Right.
And then throw into that mix the things that we had been discussing and what we were
Right.
talking about, just gender, culture, how the doctors are responding, to people. What we've seen is wonderful, but also horrific.
Right.
And
Right.
so again, going back to like what you were saying about drinking, the contrast, it's horrible, but it's just such a small pie. Like, I have stuff to do. I can't even
Yeah, absolutely. Mhm.
put on.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
That's what's wonderful about Nicole, that she's dealing with all this stuff on her shoulders, and she's unfazed because we have a mission, and we got to get through with that mission.
Stay with us. We'll be back with more Dr. Leroy after this quick break. You're listening to Cannabis Enlightened on the Olas Media Podcast Network.
American democracy's good, but we can make it better. The National Association of Nonpartisan Reformers includes organizations across the country who are working right now to build a better democracy by opening primaries, implementing safe, secure voting systems, reducing corruption, and increasing transparency. Listen to our weekly podcast, How to Win Friends and Save the Republic, to hear updates from the latest movements in the democracy reform space. Subscribe and learn more about us at nonpartisanreformers.org.
You're listening to Cannabis Enlightened on the Olas Media Podcast Network.
I do, and again, it's something I'm very grateful for, very grateful about, and it's not all the time. It's difficult to maintain, and I don't force anybody. Like, when I speak to patients, when I speak to people, if they're not in a good mood, that's okay. I can try and be in a good mood for you, and I'm
Right.
happy with that. But I try to remain as positive as possible.
Right. Well, can you talk about what cannabis are you using in conjunction with the traditional medicine? And part of that traditional medicine, and how to put it in Jaime's term, the crap you're drinking. What and how are you? What type of cannabis are you using? I'm sure that people want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually a whole series of strains. And so I guess to begin with the treatment that I'm on, for example. So I actually take several strains and it's in tincture form. I also take it in capsule form as well. And this is a full set of cannabinoids and all types of terpenes. So I will take CBD, THC. I also take acid cannabinoids. So I'll take THCA, CBDA as well. There's also other things that are thrown into the mix, and it's usually at higher dosages, and it's on a daily basis that I'm taking it, and it's keeping me alive, basically.
I was just gonna interrupt, Leroy, and just kind of put it into perspective and give an overview of Nicole's individual case.
Sure.
So Nicole was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer in August of 2018.
Okay.
5 months after she was in treatment, while she was in treatment, she had a spinal fusion surgery because the metastases had eaten through her neck vertebrae. We found that out through her PET-CT scan. So the neck vertebrae were destroyed by the metastases. That was the only thing holding her neck
neck
up.
up.
Neck up.
So I'm a bunch of metal now.
They had to. She's bionic, she says.
Yes.
That means she can beat you up.
Yeah. Yes, I better watch what I'm saying. But she had to have replacement hardware in her neck because as cancer disappeared, she didn't have any support. And everything that's vital to how our bodies function, all the breathing, digestion, everything passes through that nerve, through those nerve endings. So you can imagine how critical it is to replace those vertebrae. And so she ended up having only 3 chemo rounds in that 5-month period because they didn't want to maim the healing of her tissue around that area where she had the replacement vertebrae. So what we started doing was giving her massive amounts of different varieties of cannabis. After a 5-month period, she took a PET-CT scan, which the doctors didn't want to give to her because they thought that she wasn't going through enough treatment yet to have any conclusive evidence of how her disease was progressing. And they found that she had no evidence of disease after 5 months. So the cancer that was prevalent in her body disappeared all of a sudden. It disappeared completely. And the doctors could not explain it. They didn't have an explanation for it.
I think that's called a miracle.
Yeah.
It is a miracle.
Yeah.
It was an overwhelming miracle that we received.
Wow.
And at some points, we didn't know how to react, what to make of it. We knew that there was science that validated the response that she was getting from the cannabis because it's very well established in the preclinical literature that cannabinoids have anti-cancer mechanisms that have not been properly investigated because of all the red tape surrounding cannabis research. And obviously we know about the federal obstacles that there are for institutions to research cannabis. So we only rely now on real world evidence. That's a new word in the cannabis research community, real world evidence, because what we cannot study in a clinical setting, we're seeing that people are fed up with not having access to cannabis, trying it on their own and figuring out what it can do for them. And what we're discovering is that we're seeing profound and impactful things happening to people that are going through chronic disease, and that symptoms that we thought were irreversible are being reversed. Our strategy with Nicole was to fully understand what that part of our physiology is that interacts with cannabinoids, which is called the endocannabinoid system, and how to strengthen that, because we know from the literature that the endocannabinoid system's purpose is to create a whole physiological balance. It's the master regulator.
Mhm.
So we knew that even though it was a very recent science to understand what cannabis strain was going to get rid of the cancer, we could give it a shot because cannabis is safe to use.
Yeah.
Right.
And the rest was up to God, you know.
Yeah.
We don't really
At that
know
point.
how else to describe it.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
it
Right.
was a miracle that happened and it worked out. And so that's in a nutshell, that's
Mhm.
your case in
Yeah.
context, which is by the way being reviewed in a peer review publication. It's close to being published in the UK in a magazine called Drug Policy Journal. The access to the cannabis that we have is not through a dispensary.
Right.
We were fortunate enough to be in the industry and know all the ins and outs to figure out where to get the flower, how to extract it,
Right.
how to have the quality controls in place to make sure that we understood what was inside the medicine, to keep consistency on the medicine.
Yeah.
And, you know, the short story of how I was able to do that is I self-taught, sophisticated extraction methods. We had to network with very experienced practitioners to figure out what we were doing for dosing, especially when we were titrating to such a high level of dosing cannabis.
Right.
And just to give you an example, Nicole takes on a daily basis about 7,000 milligrams of different types of cannabinoids every day.
7,000.
Yeah.
7,000. Yeah. Most of that is acid cannabinoids. So we have CBDA, CBD, making about 4,000 milligrams.
Wow.
She takes about 1,700 milligrams of CBGA. She takes about 1,000 milligrams of THC, THCA.
Wow.
And if we were to buy that on a monthly basis at a dispensary, we'd be looking at spending about $15,000 every month.
Right.
How do you ask somebody to do that?
And
Yeah.
and you know, and the thing that is so disturbing, Leroy, is the fact that, you know, there's all this evidence out there. We've known that
Right.
that cannabis, for example, kills cancer cells. We've known this since the 70s. This is not
Right.
something new, and yet no research or very little research until now. And it's just it's something that's horrific, because you have people now who are turning to cannabis who don't really know how to use the cannabis.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
doctors are not helping. Now people don't trust the medical profession, so they're trying to do this on their own. The education is not out there, and now people are using cannabis and not getting relief.
Mhm.
And they're saying, okay, this is all a scam. This is not
Yeah.
helping.
Yeah.
We don't want that to happen, obviously, which is why we're doing a lot of the trials, the clinical trials that we're doing now, because it's there. Like I said, you know, the evidence is there.
Right. Right.
And to go back to what, you know, Jaime was saying, what you were asking about the levels and, you know, the type of protocol that was, you know, I was using during my treatment, just to speak to the levels that, you know, I'm taking on a daily basis. It took a while to titrate up to that. I mean, it definitely took a
Right.
while.
It doesn't just happen
Yeah.
at one day. You wake Monday. Let's take all this.
Yeah.
What did you say, Jaime? 7,000?
7,000, yeah.
Let's take 7,000.
Right.
Well,
And so we, you know, we tell people that, because at first when they hear something like that, they're like, well, wait a minute, I'm not even going to touch that, because
Yeah.
the levels are so high. And what I'd like to explain is, for me, for my treatment, tincture, capsule, I smoke, or, you know, when I need
Mhm.
to. So you're going to ingest on all different, with all different types and on all different levels, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to like walk into it. And please don't think that just because, you know, it's something I'm taking, that you would have to take that.
And there's a buildup to it.
Correct.
yes.
Progression.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
If
Good.
big time.
if there's a, I don't think there's a bigger example of a tool that can be completely used for individualized medicine other than cannabis.
Right.
It's such an individualized concept because it's all based on your individual physiology.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the premise behind the therapy is that, you know, we have this endocannabinoid system. Its sole purpose is to create balance. We create compounds in our bodies to facilitate that balance.
Hmm.
And the theory within the science community is that when we develop chronic disease, our ability to create these endocannabinoids is maimed. So we're not creating what we need for our bodies to create that balance anymore. So we can take what the plant creates and supplement.
Right.
So fine tuning what you need, what your physiology, what that super complex area of your physiology needs to create that balance is really a journey of trial and error. And so in our experience, what we teach patients to do is to minimize that trial and error so that they can get benefit with cannabis quickly.
So, you know, I want to again, and I have a couple of more things I want to get to you, but I just feel so moved with the fact that you all are sharing this experience in the hospital. And no, this is huge. It's huge. And, you know, the listening audience is going to hear this background and they're probably thinking, what the heck is going on? But you have let us deeply into your life and your treatment. And, you know, I just appreciate that tremendously.
Well, Leroy, thank you. And we're very grateful not only to have the opportunity, but thank you under the circumstances, because when we scheduled with you, this was unforeseen. Like, so they called me to come in, so I had to come in. It wasn't something I could really get around. So I appreciate you allowing us to be here at this time, you know.
Yeah, it's a God thing, because I was concerned that that you two were going to be ready for today, that we had, you know, contacted you and gotten you ready, because we're dealing with, you know, 2 different time zones. But, you know, if you had called me in advance and said, hey, Leroy, we're going to be in the hospital, do you want to still do this? I would have said yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes, absolutely.
So we're
we try to be troopers with everything,
yeah,
Leroy,
yeah.
and we're just kind of like, we just take it as it comes at this point.
We try to be boots on the ground, Leroy.
Yeah.
You know, it's great to talk about all these things and out there,
Yeah.
but how to bring them into practicality is really the most important part.
Right.
And,
Right.
you know, my wife is the biggest warrior that I have ever met, because
I'll say, yeah.
she's the catalyst. She keeps teaching through her experience, and she puts herself out of the equation so that people benefit from her experience.
Right. I have a feeling that, Nicole, you talk to a lot of people. And if you haven't been talking to a lot of people, once this episode is aired and people hear it, especially women, they're going to be wanting to talk to you and, you know, to touch your words, you know, through the phone or whenever you guys get a chance to come back to San Diego. You talked about the cocktail of medicine that you take. Is that something that your research that you put together, or did you find a doctor who was also knowledgeable about that?
It's a great question.
So I always tell people that I'm not anything special. I'm not a genius. I didn't think about this on my own and said, okay, well, this is going to work. It was a completely serendipitous situation, Leroy. We didn't know if it was going to work. And we made the best and most educated decision on which strains, what dosage and all that stuff. And to be quite honest with you, you know, it's my wife. I wanted to throw the kitchen sink at this and make sure that she had whatever she needed. But,
Beautiful.
you know, it was really the collective knowledge of practitioners that have been doing this for years, contacting breeders that have knowledge within generations of their family growing cannabis and understanding cannabis strains, where they come from. And really what I wanted to figure out was strains that were most closely related to their wild ancestors.
Ah,
So
okay.
strains that come from nature, untainted.
Right.
The cannabis varieties that we have in dispensaries we have in regulated markets nowadays are what I like to call as poodles.
Mm,
If you make the comparison between a poodle and its wild ancestor, the wolf,
okay.
there's a big disconnect there, right?
Yeah.
So we were searching for wolves, or what it
Okay.
was more closely related to wolves, because those varieties have not been tainted so that they're selected and they're chosen for their higher expression of CBD or THC. We wanted a higher profile of the unknown cannabinoids, what people in the industry call the minor cannabinoids.
Hmm. And they're stronger too. I mean, if we take your example, I mean, from a poodle to a wolf, I mean, the strain that's closer to the wolf is stronger, and it's going to work better. And
Right.
the other thing that you guys have talked about that I absolutely love is that most of the people that I talk to know cannabis from two levels: THC and CBD.
Right,
That's it. Then they drop the mic and they say, that's it.
right.
But you guys have talked about so many other different, elements that are within cannabis that a lot of people have never even heard of. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so. And in the science community, in the cannabis research community, they refer to the endocannabinoid system, or the series of receptors and then chemical transmitters as the endocannabinoidome.
Right.
So if you've heard of the microbiome, that's
Yes.
a whole ecosystem or that lives in our gut that
Right.
perform
Yeah.
synergistically for the benefit of the whole organism, right? So
Right.
this is from the same premise. We have, science has identified about 65 different receptors that
Right.
interact with endocannabinoids, not just CB1 and CB2, which is what in the mainstream we know the most of. There are more endocannabinoids other than anandamide and 2-AG, which are the most closely related analogs to CBD and THC. And it's such a complex area of our physiology. We believe that the future of medicine is understanding
Right.
the endocannabinoidome.
I absolutely agree with you.
yeah.
Absolutely. And so I believe the pharmaceutical industry understands that too.
Yes.
Yeah,
They
well,
absolutely do.
And they're afraid.
so you mentioned
Correct.
about our research, Leroy.
Correct.
One of the things that we're doing to share this with people, because as I said, we received an overwhelming blessing with Nicole's healing.
Mhm.
And we know that not many people have the same access to the type of cannabis that she receives, to the grade of cannabis, to the know-how. And so, we enjoy cannabis legalization in our country, and that's great, but that's only for the people that have the money to go buy at the dispensary.
Right.
We believe that these medicines should be accessible without restriction to anybody.
Exactly.
Yes.
And FDA is not equipped to view these type of therapies because they're based on the model of one single molecule, one single target, and they just downplay our physiology, thinking that that's it. It's just on the surface. And what we're trying to preach is that the concept of polypharmacology is really what we should be observing to figure out that whole physiological well-being. So, we-
I tell people, I don't mean to interrupt you, Jaime. I tell people all the time that this is not new to the pharmaceutical industry.
No.
As I've been teaching the course, and my research is that you can find the old time medicine bottles that say Pfizer.
Yep.
They've known that cannabis is good for the system and works.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
But for some reason, either political or greed or both,
Mhm.
they decided that, opioid is better.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know?
that's hubris.
and it all goes back, I believe, Leroy, to like what I was saying before, which is, it's profit. It's
Yeah,
all about
yeah, you're
profit.
absolutely right.
I cannot, we've gotten to a point now, I cannot believe that cannabis is becoming this elitist drug that is, and I say that because I just can't understand if the incredible medical benefit that it has, that people could be cured from a myriad of diseases on all different levels. And, we're worried about the profit margin, whether or not the cannabis companies that are now, publicly traded are losing money. You don't hear statistics about people surviving, against incredible medical odds. No, what you hear about is whether or not, they're making a profit, who's the CEO, who's stepping down. And you know what? That's fine and that's great. That's not what it's about. For us, that's not what it's about. People need to be healed. They just need to
Exactly.
be healed on so many levels. And,
Exactly.
What is wrong?
yeah,
And that we need to turn it on its head in order to really push for the change that we need.
I
And
agree.
what we're doing with the universities that we've partnered up with and the researchers that believe in our cause is that we're trying to figure out a system to turn that status quo around
yeah.
so that
Yeah.
medications like this can be standardized, they can be approved, and they can be available to people.
Well, sign me up. I'll be a lieutenant. Or if you can, if you could give me a higher rank, I'll take the higher rank.
Sure, okay, that's all.
I'll do whatever I need to do. But listen, I don't want, you've been very gracious with your time. I don't want to keep you any longer. Can you tell our listening audience how they can get in touch with you?
Yes, absolutely, Leroy. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Please contact us on our website. It's gracehw.com. We have a cannabis resource center that's available. And of course, you are more than welcome to contact us, through our number, and send us text message, send us an email, and we are happy to answer any questions. Whether you buy our products or not, we're just concerned with getting the information out there. We want to educate everyone.
And
So-
just something that I want to point out, Leroy,
Yeah,
sure.
we've made it a point to really understand the language and convey the message at all levels, whether you're a researcher, a physician, or just a patient that's looking for answers. We've made it a point to figure out how to speak to all those stakeholders
Right.
because you need a whole approach.
Right.
Everybody needs
Yeah.
to be.
Everybody needs to be, going in the right direction, rowing in the right direction, thinking in the right direction. Yeah, I get it. I get it. And with folks like you and myself, we're going to move closer and closer to getting people to understand that this is the way. And that, you can't look at it from a greed standpoint of money. It's how do we make life better for
Yeah.
people? And, the thing that I think about all the time is, what if we had been using this? What if people are using cannabis from the beginning,
Thank you.
as
Yes.
opposed to, okay, there's something wrong, I'm going to treat it with cannabis. What about if you've been using it all along?
Correct.
How much is prevented?
Yeah.
Correct. We agree 100%.
That's probably the topic of a whole other
Okay.
but,
Yeah, episode. Absolutely.
but
Well, listen,
absolutely.
I want to thank you two, because I know you've got stuff to do, and we could be doing this episode for another hour or two, but I want to cut it at this point. And again, thank you very much for letting us into your life, into your treatment today at the hospital.
Thank you. It was
And
a pleasure.
I'm sure that once we, go through the various motions to get this ready, that and send it to you, you're really going to enjoy what you're going to hear.
Thank you so much,
Leroy,
Larry.
thank you. It was
Okay.
a
It was
pleasure.
a pleasure. We'd love to come back and see you. And
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
know.
I can't wait. So on that, I'm going to thank you once again, Jaime and Nicole, for your time and wish you the best, the very best, and continued miracles in your life and in your health.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to have another session where we talk again about what you're doing and all the wonderful things that are happening to you in your life. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a
God bless you,
pleasure.
Leroy.
God bless.
If you'd like to hear more Cannabis Enlightened with Dr. Leroy, be sure to visit us online at cannabisenlightened.com and subscribe wherever you download your podcasts. Cannabis Enlightened is produced in San Diego, California, and presented by March and Ash at marchandash.com. On behalf of Dr. Leroy, I'm Chris Cantori, and thank you for listening.
Olas Media.